Welcome to the claymation embryonic development video. This video describes embryonic development and each of the stages of how that happens. So we start with the developing embryo being a zygote, a fertilized egg. And at this stage it's diploid, which means it has two copies of each chromosome. Then the cell divides in half by mitosis. Each cell still has a full set of chromosomes, and then the cell divides again into 4 cells. By mitosis, and then each divide again. So now we have a ball of 8 cells, followed by another mitotic division to produce a ball of 16 cells. These cells at this stage are all stem cells capable of becoming anything. So a 16 cell stage, about this time we start calling this developing embryo a morula. It's a solid ball of cells, and each cell is genetically identical. Then the cells start to migrate towards the surface, to the outside, leaving a hollow area inside. This is the first time that differentiation starts to occur. Cells start to receive different signals from surrounding cells that cause them to open up different genes and produce different proteins. So at this stage it's called a blastula. It has a hollow space inside the ball of cells. Now, differentiation has occurred at this stage, and we show that by the red cells on the outside being different than the white cells inside. We're going to call these two different germ layers, or embryonic layers of cells. The outside layer, the red cells, we're going to call the ectoderm, and the inner layer, the endoderm. The ectoderm eventually becomes all of the cells near the surface of the body, the skin, the nerves, the brain and spinal cord. All those close to the surfaces of the body typically develop from ectoderm. And the endoderm becomes the lining of the digestive tract, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, the lining of the respiratory system also. The lungs develop from the endoderm. So all of those tissues eventually arise from these two germ layers. Now at this stage we're trying to show the outside of the embryo, so inside you can just see the white layer, and an important feature of all animals is that they eat other things. They're heterotrophic. So as we open up the embryo to see the inside, what we're trying to show is that yes, there is an endoderm layer and an ectoderm, but an opening forming into that developing embryo. We're going to call that opening the blastopore. And that eventually leads into the digestive cavity of the animal. So here it shows the full digestive cavity formed. Starts with one opening, eventually works its way through to the other end. We call this stage the gastrula. Now if the blastopore develops into the rear, those animals that have that happen are called deuterostome animals. That includes our phylum, Chordata, as well as the echinoderms. But most animal phyla, the blastopore develops into the mouth, and we call those protostomes, which includes the arthropods, the mollusks, other big animal phyla. Now at this stage, this is showing a third germ layer forming in between the ectoderm and the endoderm. We call that the mesoderm. That's the blue layer of cells, and if it forms inside in vertebrate animals, it forms starting from the outpocketing of the endoderm and works toward the ectoderm. That mesoderm becomes the layers of muscles, bones, blood, all of the internal parts of the body like that. And this shows that it's actually inside the ball of cells. Okay, so at this stage, we're looking at down the front of an animal, say staring down its mouth surrounded by the white endoderm, and on the top of the back, on the dorsal surface, is this yellow streak called the neural plate, or the neural streak. And this, here's a view from the back, looking down on the back, the dorsal surface. You can see that yellow neural streak. That's going to cause the development of the spinal cord and the brain. So what happens in this process called neurulation, the cells of the ectoderm start to pile up on top and fold over the top of this developing neural tube. The yellow cells are going to develop into this neural tube, which you can see here in this view. Again, looking at it from the front, say staring down the mouth, you can see that the neural tube is hollow, and then the skin or the ectoderm starts folding over the top of that neural tube. This neural tube eventually becomes the spinal cord, and the anterior portion swells up to become the brain. Here's another view of that. You can see the cells starting to fold over the top. Cells are folding over the top and continuing to fold over and meeting each other in the midline to enclose the neural tube. And there it is, completely enclosed. So here we have the embryo that's got a complete neural tube formed. Now at the same time the neural tube is forming, also the process of segmentation starts. So this embryo shows the segments beginning to develop. Those are caused by genes on the chromosomes that regulate the body axis and the segmentation being activated. And at this stage you can see limb buds being formed on some of the segments. So each segment starts to specialize, and this is a major advantage, evolutionary advantage of segmentation, is that different body regions specialize for different jobs, able to perform functions in a specialized way. And that led to cephalization. Another major evolutionary advancement was the development of a head, which is called cephalization, where the sensory organs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, taste buds, antennae, everything was close on the anterior surface of the body so that it would encounter the environment first as that organism moved through the environment. As that animal encounters the environment, that sensory information would be sent to a brain, also in the anterior part of the body that became the head, so that reaction time could be very quick to respond to changes in their environment. And that leads to the next stage, and here you see the full embryo where you have limbs, tail. In all chordate animals you get a tail, pharyngeal slits that become gills in fish and gill arches. But in most of the vertebrate animals they lose those and the tail, and eventually becomes, you got it, a little screaming baby like that actually looks really nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us for claymation embryo development. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the video.